All right, we are live. Welcome back to the After Action Project. This is episode 104. Tonight, we're excited to have Jay White, the owner and driving force behind Sinistrum Training, a premier destination for firearms instruction in Maryland, joining us on the After Action Project. Jay's journey is defined by a commitment to excellence and a wealth of real-world experience as a former NRA law enforcement instructor, USCCA instructor, and Marine Corps Reserve Military Police. Jay brings a unique blend of knowledge and discipline to every training session. His extensive background in the marksmanship training unit and action shooting team ensures that each student receives top-notch instruction centered around their individual needs. His expertise doesn't end there. He's not just an instructor. He's also an active competitor in USPSA. His mastery of skills helps set the standard for excellence in the field and injects endless value into Sinistrum Training's curriculum. Students benefit from Jay's practical insights and techniques for success derived directly from his competitive edge. Safety, responsibility, and skill development are paramount for Jay. Whether you're seeking Maryland wear and carry permit training or looking to enhance your firearms proficiency, he provides comprehensive and expert instruction that goes above and beyond. Join us tonight as we dive into the student's seat of Jay's foundation. I made it through that entire thing without fumbling, and here I am. Join us as we dive into the world of Jay's foundations of accuracy, or of speed and accuracy.
Yep.
Take 72.
All I heard was Marine Corps earlier, so
I let it slide.
Yeah, I'm gonna just delete this entire intro and be like, Jay, talk to us a little bit about yourself. Join us as we dive into his world of foundations of speed and accuracy with Jay, a leader in the firearms training industry who's shaping the future of responsible gun ownership, one student at a time. Welcome, Jay. Appreciate you putting up with that butchered intro. Do me a favor, fill in the gaps for us, and then and talk to us a little bit about the foundations of speed and accuracy course and what got you into the firearms training industry.
Yeah, so the firearms, the foundations of speed and accuracy, right? The class is specifically designed for the student who's looking to step into that world, right? Because I've noticed here in Maryland that there's a big demand for the concealed carry, the wear and carry application, right? There's a lot of basic pistol classes, entry level stuff, but there's not much to bridge that gap between those who want to go from the basic up into the performance level, right? So I wanted to build a class that is literally just giving students the tools, right, and the techniques that they can take home and practice at home on their own after taking the class, right? Just give them a good foundation to be able to go forth and step into that realm and be successful in it. As far as getting involved in firearms training, I started with the Marine Corps, honestly. When I was in, they started off, they said, hey, who wants to go to combat marksmanship coaches course? And, it's like 15 hands raised. So they just started narrowing it down. They said, all right, well, who has 2 experts, who has 3 experts, et cetera, badges and whatnot. So eventually it got whittled down to me and like 2 other guys. So we all got to go to coaches course. And I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that we would, be learning how to coach and teach people. And it was actually there that I realized that I enjoyed the teaching aspect more so than the shooting aspect, right? Don't get me wrong. I love shooting guns, but I also love helping students develop. And I love taking a product from the beginning and working it, influencing it, watching it develop and seeing what it can get to with the right guidance, right? And an application of skill. So after that, just got a real knack for it and just pursued that and pursued it in the civilian sector too. So, yeah.
I love it. Kevin, talk to us a little bit about your background in the firearms training world and what brought you to Jay's course.
Yeah, so Jay and I have known each other for a number of years, reconnected here this past year and everything. In the Marine Corps, military police, been in for about 12 years. As far as training courses go, as an instructor, I too have taken the same combat marksmanship coach course, and more of an end user for me. my entire career, right? Based off of the tactics, with the Marine Corps and everything. And as far as getting involved with this course, again, reconnecting with Jay brought it to my attention. He's got this new course that he's putting together, and, took it with him. And, it gave me a different perspective and a different way to look at firearms, and obviously taught safety and weapons handling, manipulation, and, different tactics, so to speak. But this is, exactly what the course says, right? Speed and accuracy is something that, again, not a beginner level course, and it's something that I definitely took away and got a good bit of information that I can actually apply to my career and to my, individuals that I may be teaching later on down the road, right?
Hey, Kevin, real quick, I just want, because we've kind of beat this horse a little bit in previous episodes regarding law enforcement, and most of them having the lack of training and the lack of want. I'm just curious, is that the same with the MPs?
So if I heard your question, you're talking about like, is there a lack of interest in getting better from MPs? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, specifically in firearms. Do they train? Do they actually, or is it still kind of like qualify once a year kind of thing?
No, so there's, especially in the MP community, we're not just shooting once a year, right? There are minimum qualifications that we have to adhere to throughout the year, which usually translates to 6 to 7 different quals and, different range times that we have to, make sure we get all the Marines trained on. Maybe they missed the first one because they were on vacation or something like that. But that allows everyone an opportunity to get extra trigger time, right? And, it just kind of depends on the individual, right? As far as, obviously, as Jay said earlier, he went to the CMC course and it's like, man, this is my passion, right? And turned it into something great. Others, may see it as a job, right? So that would be individual specific. But as far as like where the Marine Corps is on training, we're, lethal fighting force and everything. We want to make sure that everyone's getting the best training that they can possibly get, especially from an MP standpoint when, we're there to protect the community and everything.
Love it. Let's dive into it. Jay, talk to us a little bit about the minimum course requirements. Is there a minimum skill set, or are there any prerequisites that somebody must have? So do you have to shoot a bill drill in under a certain amount of time? Kind of what does that look like from your perspective as an instructor?
Really, when I'm requiring people to come to the course, all I'm saying is you don't need to be babysat. Right. It's pretty much, you don't need to be an expert. You can be a beginner, right? You can be a beginner, but it's that type of beginner that can go to the range and handle a firearm safely by themselves and doesn't need an RSO like standing over their shoulder. You know what I mean? So because it's designed to take that person who maybe is that higher level beginner and push them into that next level, that intermediate whatnot. So I don't require a bill drill or a time, because that's actually the end. That's actually the culminating event at the end of the class is I have dudes shoot bill drills. It's kind of like their entry into that, right? It's like putting everything together that we work on in the class, grip, trigger, sights, and all that stuff. The final culminating drill is a couple bill drills. And so we build up. I definitely take the crawl, walk, run phase. Or I won't say phase, but the mantra crawl, walk, run, and that's how I apply it in the class.
I want to take a quick second to reintroduce our listeners to a couple of show sponsors when we're talking about gear. It's a question that we'll typically get to later on in the episodes, but I kind of want to start this episode off in that same kind of line of thought. Have you ever lost that perfect grip after shooting multiple rounds, or had your sweaty grip diminish the ability to hang onto your firearm in different weather conditions? Locked In Grip is a grip enhancer that keeps your hands free of moisture to create a slip-free connection to the action of shooting your firearm. Locked In Grip liquid shooting sports chalk is made for shooters by shooters. It's actually brought to us by the folks over there at the Complete Combatant. Visit lockedingrip.com. That's lockedingrip.com to purchase your liquid shooting sports chalk now. And one of the things that we typically look at for course gear requirements, right? You're going to need to have a serviceable handgun, bring up backup if you have it. X amount of rounds of ammo, a quality holster, a belt. And one of the things that I like to add to my range bag as an instructor, and then also carries over kind of into the world as a student, is going to be that locked in grip shooter's sports chalk. I find that it's one less thing that I have to worry about when I'm working through, specifically for, if we're looking at bill drills and shooting a rapid string of fire. If I don't have to readjust or milk my grip, I find that it's super beneficial and helpful. Is there anything that you recommend students bring to class that maybe isn't on like a typical gear list, or it's on your gear list, like a recommended piece of gear that students should bring with them for this course?
For this course, one of the things I definitely tell students to bring is the like an UpLula speed loader or some kind of speed loader, just to save those thumbs and save those grit, right? Because we jam mags a lot. Like every time we're taking a break, hey, go fill mags. Hey, go fill mags, because we're running through rounds a lot, right? So that can wear on you, right? Especially, after you're gripping the gun really tight, whatnot, then you got to go grip mags and grip these little rounds and stuff like that. So I definitely prefer to bring a speed loader. I get it, right? Some people are like, it's a rite of passage to, jam your. I get it. You know what? When you're out there for 4 hours, right? 4 8-hour long classes and things like that, I mean, you need every little bit of grip you can get. So yeah, definitely a speed loader.
Yeah, we had a class here recently, Jeremy and I, our concealed carry class. We had a student, she was our course is 2 days. So day one, we had our full classroom. Day two, we go into the range first thing. And Jeremy said, "Hey, do you remember this person?" I said, "Yeah, she did great." Well, she bowed out of class, and she just basically said, "We'll come back another day." And I said, "Man, I want her phone number, because I'm going to call her after class and see what happened, see if there was something we did or something we said." Next thing you know, I look up and she's at the range, and I'm like, "Hey, she showed. This is cool." So I walked up with her and I was like, "Hey, good to see you. I heard you weren't going to make it." And she's like, "Yeah, I was really, really nervous about shooting today." She's like, I this is the first time I've ever shot a gun. I'm not comfortable. I'm honestly really scared." And I said, "Don't worry. We got you. We're going to work one-on-one. I'm going to work with you." And so we got her up on the line. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to give you this magic sauce. Okay. This is going to help you work on your grip, your sights, and your trigger, everything we talked about day one. I'm going to give you a little bit of this magic sauce." So I just gave her a little bit of dab, a locked in, had her rub it in. And she goes, "Wow, my hands are all white." And I was like, "Yeah. So this is just going to help you get a good solid grip." She's like, "Okay, cool." We ran through the whole thing. It was another one of those. After we were all done, she just kind of walked up and gave me a big old hug and said, "Thank you so much. I was so scared." And I want to give part of that to Locked In, because I think she was so nervous, and it was like, here's this magic stuff that's going to help, and I explained to her what it was after, and I think it was a really good benefit. So we've talked about this before, and I think it is a good benefit to maybe use with new students, give them an opportunity to, eliminate a little bit of fear, a little bit of sweaty palms. So in addition to that, Kevin, I always say bring a ton of magazines. So what else would you recommend bringing?
Well, shoot, I feel like everything that we had for the course there was there. I personally, I like load my own rounds into the magazine and everything.
It's glutton for punishment.
But to me, it's a game. So every time you go on duty or whatever, it's like, all right, let's see how fast can we get our mags, loaded up or downloaded, whichever way we're going. So, I think making sure you have maybe extra magazines just in case one goes down, you're not having to, fix that, or you can just put it aside, grab a new one. Because I think most of us were working with 3 pistol mags, and that was a good rotation that we had going. So that seemed to be enough.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I don't like the UpLulas. I can't use them. Not coordinated enough to use them or something. I'm slower with them than I am just, doing it the man way.
He said, "Do it the man way." See, I always get you, man.
If I have a student that's struggling with it on the line or whatever, I'll walk them through it, and then I'll be like, "Andy, come show her how to use your UpLula," because I can't freaking use them. I have no idea how to use them. I don't like them.
It does take. I will say it did take me some reps to get the motion down. It does take a couple reps.
I come
the
from
bad
a
part though
perspective
is
of. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the bad part is they don't work on staccato mags real well, but you don't really need them, to be honest. But you guys think that's bad? You should see Jeremy dance. It's embarrassing.
When the hell am I dancing?
Your wife told me.
Oh shoot. Okay, I'm gonna have to have
Embarrassing.
conversations because I might try to keep that in the bedroom. Let's get back to this class before Andy reveals more embarrassing information about me for listeners and viewers out there. Jay, talk to us a little bit about how your military background, how you blend your background and your experience in the military with this class, and how you integrate the role, or is there a difference? Right, it sounds like this is a performance shooting course, so is there much difference in how you're approaching maybe your military or law enforcement students compared to your civilian students, or is that more of an irrelevant kind of baseline for this course?
Yeah, so what I took from like my military and like law enforcement stuff, because on the civilian side, so Kevin and I are a little bit different. He was active duty military police. I was reserve military police. So we had two different experiences in how we went about it. So our guys didn't get as much gun time as they did because we were only training once a month. Unfortunately, and we had to do a bunch of other stuff too. And then on the civilian side, I was training federal security officers down the DC National Capital Region, the dudes that guard like the different federal buildings and things like that. So I was training those guys on firearms and tactics and stuff. And one thing that always got to me is the regurgitation of, I don't want to say bad information, right? Because I mean, it's just old antiquated techniques, right? That have been that lately have been developed and realized, hey, there's probably a different, better way to go about it, right? So I looked at some of that stuff, right? How they approach like the trigger, right? Because it was very much still being taught about a pin the trigger to the back, a slow reset back to the front, right? Listen to the click and stuff like that, right? And I even sat down with my team when I was still instructing those federal security officers. I'm like, why are we teaching them to go slow back to the click? Because what's not happening? Shooting's not happening, right? You want to know why they're having slow splits. It's because every single one of them is waiting for to slowly go back to that click, slowly go back to the click, right? And you're wondering why they're not getting their shots off within the allotted time period. It's because you're teaching them to go slow about it, right? So that's, there was that, number one. So I wanted to approach this training different. And I want to be like, look, I wanted to try and take all the things that we weren't doing in those atmospheres and present it out in this manner. So, it's, I like, it's just very frustrating to want to change and be met with resistance. You know what I mean?
Have you seen the work that, is it, I'm drawing a blank on the name. I want to say Kevin Anderson or Brian Nelson, what they're working with on kind of revamping the standards for military training, and they have the devices now, basically an Apple Watch, or it is an Apple Watch that'll basically move the qualification to hit factor scoring. So that's
I have seen that. That looks amazing. I don't have an Apple Watch myself, or I would have that app, whatever it is, but I have seen it, and that's really awesome. I really like that a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see such a large institution kind of going through and looking at the standards and being open to saying, hey, let's try it a different way. This way makes more sense. Our guys should be shooting fast and accurately. And then this is a way to make sure we can track that and train that and show that.
Sure. And I mean, the Marine Corps is on the right path, right? I mean, Kevin, when we went through MP school, you remember we were shooting on the bullseye target. Do you remember that?
Right.
So we started back in 2012 on the bullseye target, right? And about halfway through our career, they switched over to the CPP, the combat pistol program, which, now we're shooting on a silhouette target with a gun pointed at you. Granted, it's not really like the greatest gun pointed at you. It's like a really awkward, unnatural position. But it gets the point, right? So it's nice that we're shooting on silhouettes now, and there's actually, they're incorporating speed reloads into the qual. They're incorporating tack reloads into the qual. So the Marine Corps is coming along. They're starting to see the light, right? And it's nice. Especially they just changed their the rifle qual to a more challenging rifle qual. So that's good too. So yeah.
It's not easy to shoot expert anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It's actually Ken Nelson and his son Brian Nelson. Those are two great guys that are kind of championing that and leading that on there.
It's Brian Nelson with TPC, right?
I don't know if he is with TPC.
With Ron Avery, right? It's same Brian Nelson.
Yep. Yeah, he is an instructor at TPC.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
The late Ron Avery.
Yeah, this is we mentioned him. I believe it was on our last episode. We were talking about Ron Avery, or maybe it was a couple of episodes past. And he's one of the instructors that I'm really kicking myself for not getting out and training with, because his, in my opinion, he was one of the. He had his first or second iteration of the instructor, or like his coach's program was kind of groundbreaking and in that area, because he was the first instructor that I had seen that was really working on diagnosing and really creating performance shooting coaches. And then I think they kind of took a pivot and they went into a different, I think they started working more with end users for performance shooting.
Yeah.
But when I look at some instructors that I like training with now, like Tim Herron, it kind of reminds me of kind of the approach that I felt Ron Avery had.
Sure.
But Kevin, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, literally last night in the Deliberate Training Group admin chat, I was watching Ron Avery videos on YouTube, and I typed in the chat, I was like, I'm kicking myself for not training with him, because the reserve shooting team actually went out and trained with him for, I think it was his handgun mastery class or whatever. They shot like 3,000 rounds over the course of like 3 days or something. It was absurd. Like, dude, they just had blisters were just on there. They were taping up hands. They were just doing whatever they could to get through that course. But they were pumping some rounds downrange, and I just couldn't go at that point in time. I think it was, I don't know what was going on, but I didn't attend, and I'm really kicking myself that I didn't attend when he was still around. So. Shucks.
Definitely one of the ones that have gone too soon.
Right.
Kevin, talk to us a little bit about what the first part of the class looks like from the student's perspective after the range safety brief and all that stuff. So as a student, what does that look like?
Right. Yeah. So from what I remember, it is pretty much like what Jay said earlier. It's kind of a crawl, walk, run method to the course, and with the culminating event being that build drill. Right. So it's a couple different techniques that Jay presents with. It's like, getting you uncomfortable with, or getting you comfortable with things that you may not be comfortable with, right? The biggest thing that I think I noticed that I remember offhand was, and Jay, you can step in at any point to clarify any of this, but one of the techniques was, single-handedly with just your thumb and your index finger, and trying to keep these three out to the side, working on that trigger pull, right? Focusing on just this, as opposed to messing up, your grip by, accidentally manipulating your hand here with these other fingers. And for one, I saw Jay do it, and his fingers, I felt like they were broken, like they were out completely wide, and I'm just trying to keep these straight and off of the pistol grip. Yeah, so you've got yours there. That's exactly the technique right there that I'm talking about. That was one of the crawl techniques that was introduced, and I'd never done any of that kind of shooting before. I mean, support hand, sure, flip it over to your support hand and everything, one-handed, and I think that was an eye opener as far as a great technique that I can use to what's the word I'm looking for? Focus your attention there on that trigger finger and making sure it's pulling straight back and everything. So that after the safety brief, kind of just rolling into some basic techniques and then building upon that as we go throughout the course.
What, Jay, if you had to say, like, what's the primary skill set that you want your students to walk away with after having this class? And you were talking about, you don't need to be, if somebody doesn't need to be babysat, and they're kind of at that like high beginner performance skill set, where do you want this class to take them after having graduated or attended it?
I want them to be comfortable, training these techniques and things that we work on, right? So I mentioned numerous times in the class, we're exploring. You remember saying that, Kevin? We're exploring, right? We're experimenting. Yeah. We need to push limits, see where we're at, right? Push harder, see where we can dial it back, right? Just explore where our abilities can take us and things like that. So I know that there's a big I don't want to say, I guess stigma is the thing about failing, right? There's a big stigma about failing. I don't want to fail, right? Well, by constantly, harping on, I can't fail, well, you're holding yourself back, right? Because you do need to fail in order to grow, right? To gather data, to process, to understand, to develop, and things like that, right? It's, I explain it like as a baby, right? I have two girls of my own, and teaching my girls to walk, right? Every time they fall down, it's a failure, right? How many times do they fall down? 1,000,000 times, but eventually through that process, every single human here is walking, right? So we eventually have to learn, it's, through failing, we can progress and we can grow and develop.
And that one exercise too that you had where it was like, how much wiggle room do you have with your sights to be able to know, okay, draw quick and, engage and, figure out how far of a window do you have with your sight alignment and everything where you're still actually in the box, right? And then working with that, again, speed and accuracy, start out slow, pick it up a little bit, and then it allows you to actually understand where your personal limitations are while still staying inside the target area.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is I call it the around the world drill, and we're on USPSA target, and essentially we start with a pistol, right? Sights perfectly aligned, and then I have them experiment by raising the front sight up, right, and seeing how far we can push that upward limitation before we're outside of the A zone, right? And then I'll have them push them to the right, right? Experiment. Just, if you push too far out of the right, okay, cool. You've gone too far. Bring it back, right? Experiment with that. Same thing with down, left, right? So we just do that all the way around. Just experimenting with the limitations of the front sight, floating it right in the back rear sight to see exactly if I pull up, okay, good. I see what I need to see, and I can send it, and I can get a hit.
I like that drill. Did that with Tim Herron too. I don't know what he calls it, but basically it's a sight deviation drill, and it gives students and shooters a little bit of confidence. So for me, I was always pinpoint trying to be that super accurate, and then I can never get faster. That's my problem is speed. Like I'm always trying to push the speed now because you're either fast or you're either accurate. And whichever one you are, you're trying to get to the other one. So that sight deviation drill that you do, that really helped me show, like, Andy, you don't need that perfect sight picture. See what you need to see and get on the trigger. And, I really like that. So, Jay, what's another thing that you really like to do in your class that you feel really benefits the student?
Kevin's probably going to hate me for this one, but
I already know.
I love pushing the guys on the target focused. I love pushing them on target focused. It was great. A lot of guys were really frustrated because everybody, a lot of guys wanted to draw into the front sight and get that heart front sight, HD, clear, equal height, equal light. And I had pasters on the target. So I'm a little bit more rude about it. So I do brown on brown. I do brown pasters on brown cardboard or brown paper, right? Because what I've noticed, and I'm experimenting with this myself. There's a lot of guys out there. I know Stoger talks about doing this, about putting like a black paster on a target, right, to try and teach target focus. But the problem is when you move off of the black paster to a plain target or an open target, you don't have the black paster, so your eyes are looking for a spot, right? They're like, what am I gonna? I have nothing to draw my eyes to. So I've been experimenting with putting a brown paster on brown cardboard, because if you start close enough, yes, you can see the outline. But I mean, if you get back far enough, you really have to focus on that target to pick up where that dot is, and that really drives a target focus look. But if you're looking for that paster on the brown paster on brown cardboard, yeah, you really got to focus the target and find it.
I like that. Another one, just to kind of reference to give you an idea of some of the great stuff that you're doing, is I believe it was Brian Hill that mentioned anytime he meets somebody, he looks at their kind of like the center area of your body and he picks out a target. Like, hi, nice to meet you. But I like that little button you have right there in the center of your
Perfect.
chest. So
it's this button right here. Yep.
That's the one. So you automatically have a point of reference to be able to look at that target. So I think that's really good stuff. I want to step back to the beginning of the course. We mentioned that you fill mags a lot. How many rounds do you have estimated in your class?
This class, let me look at my round count here. I think I have them at, it's like 250, 275-ish in 4 hours. So we're cranking out pretty heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, we had enough rounds. I'm trying to think how many I brought with me.
You brought a crap ton. You brought more than what I actually told you.
Well, I was gonna say we definitely had leftover and we were sharing and that sort of thing. So
and what I told you to bring was already more than the drop dead allotment. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's been a while since I had some trigger time. So
Mm-hmm.
You can never have too much ammo in class, right? And I remember a piece of advice that Andy had given me years ago was bring extra mags. Double the mag count. If it's a 3 mag class, bring 6. So I went out and I have like 10 or 12 of the S15 mags for my Glock 48. And my theory is that if there's an opportunity for somebody to shoot more, the guy that has his gear loaded up and ready to go, that's going to be the guy that gets to shoot some more. So that's who I want to be, right? And I walk around with people will talk crap about dudes that show up to class with like a battle belt. I run my gun from appendix, but I'm wearing a battle belt so I can have a dump pouch with 150 rounds of ammo, and I can have my mags in there, and I could just be stuffing when I'm on the line. That way, I'm not holding anybody else up, because it bugs me when I'm in. You're taking a $700 or $800 class, and you got a guy down there that is fiddling around with mags, and I'm like, come on, dude, let's go. Let's go.
Time is money.
I think the pace of this course, whenever we were stepping back to reload, it was a good opportunity. Again, big boy rules with this course, just to kind of give quick interaction, like school circle type of feedback there, but then we kind of bounce ideas and what our thought process was as we're loading up for new set of rounds and everything for the next iteration. So I mean, I think the pace of the course that allowed us, I won't say it was downtime, but it was like time to discuss, give feedback and everything and receive feedback. So
we were talking about drills a minute ago, and a tool that I like to bring out with me to the range is the Range Buddy app. It's a collection of over 160 shooting drills. They're all sorted out by the required target type and that kind of stuff. Integrated leaderboard and performance tracker in there. One of the things that I like about it, we were talking about bill drills, is Andy and I were shooting bill drills, and I was like, I have no idea if I'm shooting better or worse. And I was like, man, it would be neat to have something on my phone where I can take a picture of my target, upload it, and then I can kind of keep track of my performance. And the Range Buddy is great for that. We just rolled out the instructor marketplace on there for our users. They can find a reputable instructor in their area for in-person training, or a reputable instructor for some virtual training. All of the instructors on there, they have instructor credentials beyond the basic NRA or USCCA. Jay, you're an instructor on there. All right. And it's one of those things where it's not just, if you get on Google and you're going to find instructors that are good at SEO or anybody, and there's really no way you can go through 2 or 3 classes before you figure out what a good instructor is or a good course is. And that instructor marketplace is a great way to kind of shorten that learning curve, because all the instructors are there on there, reputable, and they take their training seriously. If you haven't checked out the Range Buddy app, download it. It's available on iOS and Android. rangebuddy.app. Find your new favorite instructor there. What are some other drills? Or Kevin, I guess, what was the most challenging part for you in this course, or the most challenging drill, if there wasn't another thing?
For me, it was definitely the target focus mentality of the shooting, because it's been the opposite my entire career, right? And now I can't recall exactly where in that course you introduce it. I want to say it's on the latter half of it, but that was, again, picking up on sort of the running phase of that course. That was definitely putting together some of the pieces, but still going target focused from the holster was definitely the most challenging one for me to overcome, because it was a mental thing, having the shot timer and everything on there as well. But I mean, it was great. It was great. I loved it.
Jay, what do you find some students typically struggle with, if there is the kind of like a underlying pattern of what you see is like, okay, this is going to be something that I know we're going to have to spend a little bit extra target or time on? Is it the target focus stuff? Or is it something else?
A lot of it really was, I would say grip was a big one, right? Because you got to think, right? Like shooting is counterintuitive to how we use our hands in our daily lives, right? If I go to pick up something, right, I'm using the whole of my hand, right? Typically, in your daily life, if you're using your hand, you're using all your fingers in conjunction with one another, right? But then we put a gun in the hand, and now I just want you to use one of those fingers, and I want all the other ones to stay still and don't move, do nothing, right? And it's even beyond the fingers too, when we get into the palm and the pressures in the palm, and tightening, little. It's amazing that people learn that the slightest little inflection of muscle from the hand can really deviate that gun, right? If the grip isn't locked in, right? So that's why the first drill that we get into literally is the trigger isolation drill, like he was talking about. Is this, right? Is because that's going to be the foundation, and we're going to be keep coming back to that every single time, right? Of having a good solid grip and isolating that trigger finger from the rest of the muscles in the hand and the palm and stuff like that. So that's why I started out with that as the foundation, as the very first drill. Well, I don't know. Okay, so it's the first okay, we're gonna learn something drill. The first drill that we do is I get them warmed up with I start them at 5 yards, and we do 5 rounds both hands, 5 rounds both hands support, 5 rounds strong hand, and 5 rounds support hand only, right? So it's kind of like that feel good, right? Like you get the good juices flowing of like, hey, yeah, I'm doing really good, and then we start to break everybody down. And, right? So it's like I give everybody that good high, and then we're gonna crash it down and break it down and start getting.
You're gonna learn today.
Yeah, everybody. Well, it's nice. Everybody gets a little win right off the bat, right? So they're just like, yeah, I'm feeling good, right? And then I start throwing curveballs left and right. And so
there was I was in class, and I've trained with Tim a couple times. I've taken his class a few times, and the last time I trained with him, he added a drill into his And I don't know if it was based on the pace of the course, but it was a drill that we hadn't worked before. And it was kind of this experiential learning deal. And just shifting my support hand grip like 1/8 of an inch had a drastic, it caused a noticeable improvement on when I brought the gun out to full extension and how I was in my accuracy. And it was just, I was like, I've been shooting for, 12, 13 years and I'm okay. I'm not the best. I'm slightly better than Andy, depending on the day. Depending on the gun he's shooting. Depending on the gun he's shooting. And I was just like, I was blown away. And it goes to, I think it speaks to the benefit of that piece that you were talking about, right? Like, we're really going to learn and we're going to fail and we're going to experiment and we're going to do these drills that you can kind of see, right, how your sight alignment affects and how much actual leeway you have at 5 yards with your front sight and your rear sight or your dot in the window. And it's something that I don't know if students understand the importance of seeking out training and classes where that's kind of a integral part of it. And it's right, because an instructor can get up there and they can say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to walk you through it. I'm going to show you. I'm going to walk down the line and I'm going to, like, he could have walked down the line and he could have been like, hey, do me a favor, just, adjust your grip a little bit this way or that way. Try it now and moved on. But it was the way that it was presented in such a way that it was like, no, find out what works for you. And I was watching Riley Bowman's class in the Active Self-Protection Unlimited, the ASP Unlimited app, right? And I was watching his Pistol IQ course, and a lot of it is centered around this same kind of, hey, we're going to play and we're going to learn together. And this is what I found works for me. And this is what I found works well for students. But let's see where you fall kind of on that spectrum. And as a student, I think it's hugely beneficial because I've taken classes that were supervised range sessions, right? Where it's like, hey, we're going to run this drill, beep, everybody shoots, walk down the line. Oh, good job. We're going to try it again. Do better. And then, of course, it's one of the things when Andy, one of the first conversations I had with Andy when we started working together, and I was like, hey, it's going to be super easy for our students to think we are the best instructors ever. A, because we are the best instructors they've ever had, but that's because we're the only instructor that they've ever had. And then B, if we take our students and we have them shoot at the beginning of class, regardless of how good we are, they are going to perform better at the end of the class.
Yes.
Right. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we did our job. So how do you balance your role of it? How do you kind of keep yourself in check? And I know you do it because you're on this podcast. And I think we've done a really good job of making sure that we get reputable instructors on here that hold themselves to account and have standards for themselves. But what are you doing? How are you kind of holding yourself accountable to actually making your students better?
So I got to stay humble. Number one, right? I got to stay humble. I will always say that I am, even though I teach, I am still a student. Number one, first and foremost, I am still a student myself, right? Because there are people out there that have way more knowledge than I do, and I want some of that knowledge, right? So that's kind of where I'm at, right? And I will say, if you would have met me probably about 5-7 years ago, right, you wouldn't want me on this podcast because I wasn't that type of instructor. I was very much the institutionalized inbreeding instructor, right? We do it this way because we've always done it this way, not because I had any kind of understanding or opened my mind to critical thinking, right, of why we do things or why, diagnosis and things like that, right? So you keep opening my mind definitely helps keep me grounded and humble in what I do. And I just want to share, what information I have and things like that. So I need to first and foremost practice what I preach. So if I'm telling kids, hey, if not kids, but if I'm telling my students, hey, you dry firing, then I should probably be dry firing myself. And following up with things like that. So it's definitely, I have to hold myself accountable. If I'm going to expect it out of my students, then I need to be doing it myself too at the same time. If I'm telling them, hey, open your mind and learn, then I need to open my mind and learn. So it's kind of, it's twofold, right? It's a responsibility and a kind of respect thing back and forth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so absolutely, and that's cool to hear that there was a noticeable switch, and one of the things that I think I've noticed with the training industry over the last 5 to 10 years or so is that the level of training or the quality of instruction that's being provided is just kind of exploded, and I've said it before, and it's a really great time to be a student in the firearms training industry because there are so many undervalued instructors right now that folks can get out and train with, and they're providing just an exponential level of value. You know what I mean? Instructors like yourself, Memphis Beach is another one where I'm like, dude, what are you're way undercharging. Like, you're way undercharging right now. Like, the value that is available it's pretty cool. It's a golden era of firearms instruction. I think there's still some bad apples out there, but I think they're hopefully falling by the wayside, and folks are able to seek out some of the quality instructors that are out there.
Not in Maryland, they're not.
Well, that's we have a couple, I would say, in the last, if we're looking at handgun instructors in New Mexico, there are a couple folks that Andy and I would send our folks out to. If we're looking at the AR stuff, or .mil or .gov folks, we have a couple, one or two, Andy, right? I think we have that we would be like, hey, if you're looking for some .gov training type stuff. But other than that, it's Andy is looking for a 6-hour drive or a flight now. And I don't know, he's all over the place.
Yeah, we had that. The Bruin decision happened, and Maryland just the floodgates opened here for concealed carries, right? I mean, you had some institutions out here, man, that were charging like $700 for a 16-hour wear and carry class because they were getting it. Dudes were just yeah. Like 2022 was a wild time, right? So, and conversely to that, you had a lot of dudes that were seeing that money. They're like, oh, I see the Maryland requirements to be an instructor aren't really that strenuous, so I'm gonna cash in on some of that, right? So now we have a plethora of Maryland certified instructors out there, right? That, have been around for 2 years. And unfortunately, they're just, they're just out here taking good folks' hard earned money, right? And not really providing anything of substance to them. So it is what it is, man. You just, they have their place and I'm just trying to make mine.
Yeah. It's a 2-day class up there in Maryland.
Yeah. It's 16 hours. So it doesn't say it has to be 2 days. It just says 16 hours. However you want to break it down is up to you. We got some dudes out here that'll do like 2 weekends, 4 hours between 4-hour days between 2 weekends. They'll do something like that, or they'll do 2 night classes of 4 hours and then 1 8-hour day. So it doesn't matter how you break it up, just as long as you hit that mark. And then we have a 25 round qual. It goes back to like 15 yards. You don't even start in the holster. Everything is low ready, and it's like 2 rounds in 5 seconds, 3 rounds in like 6 seconds. It's
spicy.
Harder than ours.
Yeah. We got a 25 round qual, 15 at 3 yards, 10 at 7. It's a 12 by 18 inch target. We've had a legally blind student pass it years ago.
We're on the B27, the good old B27 silhouette, man. And if it's on black, It counts.
Hey, some instructors use that in their non-concealed carry class.
Rough. It's rough.
Kevin, as a student, what are some traits that you're looking for in an instructor that you're going to train with? And I guess go ahead and hype Jay up and talk to us about really what were some of the qualities and characteristics of him as an instructor that really resonated with you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's someone that comes from a place of humility, right? Which was, clear across here. It's like, hey, this is course of business and everything like that he has, but at the same time, practicing what he's preaching, but also, Jay got out there and actually showed us the drills too, just like every good instructor should beforehand. And as far as like what I'm looking for, this particular class is like speed and accuracy. That's something that I haven't spent enough time, merging the two and kind of shortening, making them combining those two, kind of like Andy, what you were saying earlier. It's like you got speed or you got accuracy, and not necessarily both. So, and then something like this, it's like, hey, someone who's got some a good reputation, right? And someone I can walk away from knowing that, like, hey, I learned something completely valuable from that. And I guess the real question is like, how do you know what you're walking into, right, beforehand? Obviously, benefited by Jay and I knowing each other for a while. I never had been taught by Jay any firearms or anything like that, right? But still, just being able to walk away with something is like, hey, would I go back to this instructor? And that's kind of, I get to warm and fuzzy for that. And, I recommend that for anybody to go check out Sinistrum training.
Okay. So we were talking about instructors and how there are a ton of great instructors, and there's still a ton of less than great instructors out there. One of the things that I've kind of looked to is who are the instructors that have students that know what they're talking about, right? And we start to see. And it was really evident years ago. You would see like students from different camps. Like if they were from like this instructor's camp, they kind of had this perspective on accuracy, speed and accuracy, for example, right? And they were talking about, well, we're combat focused, and I guess neither accuracy nor speed really matters. So one of the things that I look to is kind of the quality of student that the instructors are putting out, and then who are the instructors that other instructors are recommending, right? Like this peer review process. And, Jay, you said about 5 to 7 years ago, it really switched for you. What do you think was the impetus for that? What do you think caused that switch in your mindset as an instructor that really created this kind of change that you recommend or that you recognized in yourself?
To be honest, it was when I got picked up on the Marine Corps shooting team. So that really switched me to kind of this new, I won't say newer mindset, but opening my mind, because there was a gunnery sergeant that I really, really looked up to. And one of the first things he told me when I got on the team is shut your mouth, open your ears, just listen, right? He's like, I get it, right? Everybody's got opinions, right? But like, you're new. The best thing that's going to happen for you is just to listen to what people have to say, right? And that's really what I did. I just sat back and I just listened to conversations, and I listened to how people broke things down and their reasoning behind things. Because like, that's the thing, is like on the shooting teams, you got national champions, you got world champions, you got Lockheimer medal winners, you got USPSA guy, you got literally like all walks of life, you got pistol guys, you got rifle guys, like you got literally everything is there, right? And everybody has their own input on how they do things and whatnot. And these are guys that are like seasoned, because one of the cool things about the reserve team is you can get on it and then you can ride out your entire career on the reserve shooting team, whereas the active team, you can only do like 3 or 4 seasons, I think it is, before you get sent back out to the fleet. So you got guys that have been on the team for 10, 15, 20 years of their career, just, endless bounds of knowledge, right? So that's kind of where, I would listened, and then I went home in my own little world, and I applied what I had heard and stuff like that, just tried out and I was seeing that was actually working, and I was like, maybe there is something to this. So
you said that this was a newer class that you've been offering. What anticipation, or do you anticipate any changes that you'll likely make to either the format or the flow, the drill structure? How do you kind of see this evolving over the next 6 to 18 months?
Yeah, I definitely want to explore the drills some more. I want to make sure they're the right drills, right? So the drills that I came up with off the top of my head that I think are going to get me to where I want to be, but I need to, I need a student flow, right? And data to support the hypothesis, right? Of, is this a good drill? Is this a solid drill, right? It's a good drill for me, right? And that's kind of what I was looking at. It's like, hey, these are drills that have helped me in this avenue, right? So let's see how they do with other students so far. So that's number one. Maybe the round count will change, right? Maybe the reps, maybe, maybe the order of events, how we do things will change and stuff like that. So, I mean, all of my classes are, except for the Maryland wear and carry concealed carry course, because that's state mandated and state provided, right? But all of my other classes are going to be living, breathing documents, right? Based on results of how the students and the feedback that I get and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to go seek follow-on training. I know we talked it at the beginning, but like continue to train and get better. And as you said, Jay, have an open mind too, because I mean, just go to your basic qualification course. Okay, I'm good. Like, okay, what's next?
Kevin, what suggestions or recommendations do you have for somebody that's, say they're signed up for the next class, right? They're going to be taking this class in a week or two. What recommendations do you have for them?
I think the biggest thing is for sure have an open mind, regardless of where your skill level is, how many years you've been shooting, whether this is your first training class beyond certification. Just go in with an open mind and try and be a sponge, right? Because I was definitely humbled on this course, right? Now, not that I didn't come in with an open mind, but it definitely opened it up even more to this world, right? I never got into competition shooting or anything like that. I never had the means to get into it, I should say, right? It's not that I was never interested in it. But this sort of training is definitely, I feel like, a good pathway to be able to get into competition shooting, right? So something that I would look to continue to apply these drills and techniques to be able to better an individual that may be looking for some sort of competition shooting. So as far as recommendations to a student going into this course is, again, have an open mind and ask questions, clarify any sort of the drills that may be in, Jay does a great job of explaining what the purpose is, right? But just open mind and ask questions, so that way you can fully understand exactly what the end goal is.
I do want to say one cool thing about Kevin attending the class is he actually attended the class with an M18, the same pistol that the Marine Corps has issued as their standard issue sidearm now. So cool thing for him, right, is he's actually getting to practice these techniques on his duty issued firearm and stuff like that. So I know a lot of the other guys are just bringing their personals, but I mean, he personally owns, his own M18 and whatnot. So, and he's issued one by the Marine Corps too. So the skills
I was going to say, disclaimer, I did not bring a Marine Corps issued weapon to this civilian course. So
excuse me.
Let's put that out there.
Excuse me, Marine Corps. Not what I meant. Right. I meant it was a SIG P320. Right. Yeah. Anyway, that looks like an M18 anyway. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's definitely a civilian version of it. It's just my own personal. So.
Oh, there we go. Josh is one of my former students too. He took my wear and carry class with me. So
nice.
Yeah.
Where do you fall? Before we get off of here, there's been an interesting discussion in the deliberate training group. And for our listeners out there that are on Facebook and they haven't heard of the deliberate training group V 2.0, join that group. There's a wealth of knowledge in there. There are a ton of, there are quite a few reputable instructors that are freely sharing information and advice and all that stuff in there.
It's criminal. It's criminal the amount of good information that's being shared in there. It really is.
I know. I'm like, you guys should be selling this through the Range Buddy app instead of giving it away on freaking Facebook. Right? But I digress. No, but it's cool to see because you'll see like dudes that are selling out classes every weekend across the country, and they're in there giving just nuggets. And every now and then there's a heated discussion that pops off, and I think this week's discussion was around the necessity for instructors to be competitive shooters, right? And then the questions that are being asked is, how important is it that an instructor be involved in competitive shooting, or I guess like have real world experience? Like if you're a military dude, I absolutely understand the importance. If you're going to go take a class on how to kick doors in and clear rooms, you should be taking it with somebody that has experience doing that in a hostile environment, because that's been pressure tested in real life. But if we step that back, how important is it, do you think, in your opinion, that instructors be competitive shooters, or they compete in some discipline or another?
So where I'm at with it, right? Because we were actually, the admin team we were going back and forth in our little admin chat and, chatting about it and talking about it and whatnot. And it's like, there are plenty, of really good instructors out there who, to my knowledge, don't compete, right? Number one is Bill Blowers, right? I think he has shot maybe on practice score. I think one of the admin had said he has 3 matches total on practice score, right? So I wouldn't say that he's like a big competition guy, like he's out there burning it down every weekend like some of us, some of the other instructors in there, right? So Bill Blowers, right, number one. And then Mike from Assault Dynamics out there in California. I don't know, Knockout Lights on Instagram. I guess you guys know who I'm talking about. I don't think he competes. I haven't seen much he could, I don't know, but I haven't seen much from him. But I would absolutely definitely take a class from either one of those gentlemen, right? Because even though they're not competing, they're still applying a performance standard to their shooting, right? So the competition aspect is just like a catalyst to the performance aspect, right? As long as you're holding yourself to a performance standard, being disciplined in it, being honest with yourself about that, the techniques and stuff that you're doing, I don't think it's absolutely 100% necessary, right? Is it fun? Yeah, it sure is fun. I wish everybody would compete, right? Just more people come out and enjoy and have fun with, right? But as far as like an instructor goes, you don't need to. Is it cool that you do? Sure. Is it fun? Is it probably maybe a seller? Sure, maybe. But I don't think it's absolutely one of those drop dead things of, you have to, you should be out there burning it down every weekend. No, I mean, I think more importantly, you should be holding yourself accountable to a performance standard, right? And being honest with yourself and developing yourself, whether that's, through a competition or through private training of your own, either or.
That makes sense, and it's well said. Yeah, it's just, let's rehash the internet. It's fun stuff. I don't. The thing that bugs me about when we get into conversations about instructors and competition shooters and instructors who are competitive shooters is there tends to be this kind of
ego.
Well, I was going to say disrespect or shade that gets thrown towards high-level competitive shooters that are well-known instructors and well-respected, and it's like the only thing, it's like, oh, I'm gonna hit him with the well, how many bodies do you have? How many state sides do you have? Well, then you don't have any business teaching law enforcement dudes, or you don't have any business teaching military dudes. And it's like, well, that's a completely different argument. I don't think anybody, and none of those dudes that are high level competitive shooters that I've trained with confuse the idea with what they're teaching and tactics.
Performance,
right? And
it's at the end of the day, performance is performance.
Exactly.
And it's the clock doesn't lie, right? And cool, you want to take the tactics route, cool. You have a 1.5 second problem, and the best you have is a 2.
Yep.
Right? That's the beginning and the end of the argument right there, right? It's if you need.
And I think that was part of my take too on this course, was going into it is how would this apply to my day to day. And again, fundamentals of speed and accuracy is very important whenever you're out there, right? Because again, tactics, when you're introducing other systems into the training, sure, but we're talking about weapons handling right here, and okay, that's one aspect of it, and then integrating that into everything else, regardless of where the instructor's coming from. Just depends on what you're trying to get out of it.
I think it's just muddying the waters, really. Is you have this big bucket of different things, right? At the end of the day, if we're talking about shooting, if you have an amazing guy like Bill Blowers who's never competed, and then you have a guy like Tim Herron who's an amazing competitor, shooting is shooting is shooting. But what happens is we throw this all in a bucket that, well, if you're a competitor, you can't teach self-defense. Well, he's not going to teach tactics, but he's going to teach you how to shoot really good. Then you can get the ability to take a tactics course, concealed carry class. I mean, a class like yours and ours, where it's 16, 15 hours of training, we have to talk about a lot of those things, de-escalation and all that stuff that we get taught. But what happens is basically everybody dumps this out in a big puddle and muddies the water with it. And everybody has a lane, and some of it crosses over, some of it doesn't. But at the end of the day, shooting is shooting is shooting, whether you're shooting at a static target. You hear these guys on the internet, on Facebook all the time. You'll see a reel where some guy's like practicing, and you always have that guy, well, those targets don't shoot back. It's like, come on, man. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, dude. Like, go take a class.
It's like if you think of any, athletic industry too, it's like, okay, you're going through drills and repetitions, but then whenever you get the whole team out there, that's, you put those training pieces into play and, build everything like that. So,
I've always said, at the end of the day, the gun skill is always the great equalizer. It's always the great equal. It always comes back to that, right? You can have tactics out the wazoo, right? But if I'm faster on the gun, there ain't no amount of tactics that's going to help that. It's just the facts of the matter of performance, right? And to Anderson's point, right? We talk about athletics and sports, right? Speed is always the determining factor, right? Baseball, right? Bat speed. How fast do I pitch? How fast can I react? How fast can I get down the baseline, right? Football, how fast is my release? How fast is my running back? Speed is always the determining factor whenever we get into any kind of performance, right? And that's no different in the gun world, right? When we're talking performance shooting, right? Be it tactics or not, competition, whatever, right? Speed is always going to be the determining factor.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe it was Jared Reston. I was watching his podcast, and he talked about mindset. And if you guys know this, if it's correct or not, but I'm pretty sure it was Jared Reston. He talks about mindset, right? And having this mindset of he was going to go home at the end of the day. I don't know if you're familiar with Jared's story. If not, watch it. It's really, really good. But he mentioned, he's like, mindset's great, but if you have no skill to back up mindset, it's meaningless. So again, all these things have to come together. And if you're not doing it that way, then it's useless.
Yeah, absolutely. I have kind of distanced myself from the tactical world, right? Because of that resistance to just the there's a lot of how do I say this nicely? There's a lot of people set in their ways, right, about how things are supposed to go and stuff like that. And it's something I want to bring up earlier, as I feel like, as the instructor and like in the instructor world, right, we do ourselves a disservice by consistently putting absolutes on things, right? Your students aren't absolute, right? So why should your training be absolute, right? It always needs to be this way. The grip needs to always be this, or you need to always do it this way, putting ourselves in boxes and stuff like that, right? Everybody that you encounter is different. Everybody's everybody's processing, everybody's understanding is different, right? So therefore, you as the instructor need to be flexible in what you do too, right? And at the end of the day, if the results are getting had, right? If you're getting those results, then it's good, right? We're getting results, right? It doesn't matter if they're, the thing that frustrates me is people are getting results, but it's not in this box way that people said you had to get results. So then they break people down and they're like, no, you have to do it this way that I told you, right? And therefore we lose the progress where we were. So it's like, what did we really gain? We did nothing, right? You made yourself feel good because they did it your way, but the student at the end of the day is suffering because they're not getting the results.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that. I'm gonna step back. Jeremy was talking about working with Tim that one day, and Jeremy originally he had a grip similar to Robert Vogel's. You remember that, Jeremy? And Tim said, Robert Vogel can crush like rocks, and your grip isn't the same with his. And then he showed us by how the brass case comes out of the gun and changing that. I remember that day changing Jeremy. It was just, both of us were just like, right, mind blown. And just going into that, two things that I always say in our class, right, is it worth it? And nothing is absolute, to make people understand, like, just because, and everybody's heard the repetitive saying, it's a way, the way stuff. But I think it's really important that we all understand that each person has a lane and we have to do the best we can to stay in it. But as we said, shooting is shooting. Learn what works best for you and have that open mind as a student, and you'll go far.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
I know you guys are a couple hours ahead of us, so I want to give you the rest of the night back. Is there anything that we should have talked about with regards to this class or firearms training that we haven't touched on yet, Jay?
Yeah, we need to flip that percentage of like 99% of people not getting training and only 1% getting training. We need to like flip that hardcore, right? I need to see some like 60-40, 70-30, 50-50, right? I need to see some of that, right? That's kind of where I'm at too. I just want, I'm not trying to be a nationally known instructor. I just want to help my local area, right? I want to fix the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, because I feel like we're behind when it comes into the gun knowledge and skill and handling and ability and stuff like that. So I'm really trying to focus my area and be there for here.
And that is the $1 million question, Jay. The day you figure out how we can do that is the day that you're going to be beyond a national level instructor, is to get that 99% to get out on the range and actually do something, So on that note, I want to thank you guys both for coming on, Jay. We appreciate it. It was a really interesting class. I think it's really important, especially for the new carry conceal people that are coming out. Continue doing what you're doing. Kevin, thank you for your services, as well as you, Jay. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners and our viewers. We appreciate you jumping on and spending your evening with us. Remember, it's your life. It's your safety and protection. It's your responsibility. Y'all stay safe, and we'll see you next week.